Are you living only half a life? Do you ever feel a subtle sense of incompleteness, as if a vital part of you remains dormant, unseen, or unexpressed? What if the key to unlocking your fullest potential, your deepest creativity, and profound sense of inner peace lies not in searching for something outside yourself, but in fostering a sacred, hidden union within? This isn't a new idea. Ancient alchemists, often misunderstood as mere gold seekers, spoke in veiled symbols of a chemical wedding, a sacred marriage of opposites that could transform lead into gold. Not just literal gold, but the gold of an illuminated, integrated soul. And in the 20th century, the visionary psychologist Carl Jung, an explorer of the soul's deepest territories, recognized in these ancient symbols a profound map for modern psychological healing and growth. He called this inner union the alchemical marriage. Today, we journey into this fascinating and transformative concept. We'll explore how Jung believed each of us, regardless of our outward gender, carries within us a vibrant interplay of what he termed archetypal masculine and feminine energies, and how the conscious, courageous integration of these often separated parts of ourselves can lead to a life of greater wholeness, power, and authentic self-expression. Forget what you think you know about masculine and feminine. We're about to dive much deeper. Many of us move through life with persistent, if often unacknowledged, feeling of being slightly off balance. We might excel in certain areas, yet feel strangely lacking in others. We might present a strong, capable face to the world while privately wrestling with vulnerabilities or unexpressed longings. This sense of inner division isn't a personal failing. From a Jungian perspective, it's a common human experience, a sign that vital parts of our inner landscape may be calling for attention. Carl Jung, who delved into myths, dreams, and ancient spiritual traditions, saw the human psyche not as a monolithic entity, but as a dynamic interplay of various energies and archetypal figures. He believed that true psychological maturity, what he called individuation, involves becoming aware of these different facets of ourselves and bringing them into harmonious relationship. And central to this inner symphony are the archetypal energies often symbolized as masculine and feminine. Now, it's crucial to understand that Jung wasn't talking about rigid, societal gender roles. He was speaking of fundamental patterns of energy, universal qualities inherent in the human experience, present in everyone. Think of the masculine, or what he termed the animus in women, an aspect of the developed ego in men, as embodying qualities like logic, assertiveness, structure, focused action, and the drive for meaning and understanding. And the feminine, or the anima in men, an aspect of the developed ego in women, as representing qualities like emotionality, intuition, relatedness, creativity, receptivity, and the flow of life. Let's imagine two people for a moment to see how an imbalance of these energies might play out. Consider Elena. She's incredibly empathetic, deeply intuitive, and her relationships are rich with connection. She feels things profoundly and possesses a wonderful creative spirit. Yet, Elena often struggles to set firm boundaries. She finds it difficult to make decisive choices, especially under pressure, and sometimes feels overwhelmed by her own emotions or the emotions of others, losing her own center. Her feminine energies are vibrant, but she may have unconsciously suppressed or underdeveloped her inner masculine, that capacity for structured thought, assertive action, and clear definition. Then there's David. He's highly successful in his career, known for his sharp intellect, logical problem-solving, and decisive leadership. He's built a life of order and achievement. But David often feels a certain emotional aridity. He's uncomfortable with vulnerability, finds it hard to truly connect with his deeper feelings or the feelings of others, and secretly yearns for a lost sense of spontaneity or creative spark. His masculine energies are well-honed, but he may have neglected or devalued his inner feminine, the source of emotional depth, intuitive wisdom, and relational warmth. Both Elena and David, in their own ways, are living with unseen, unintegrated partners within themselves. This isn't about one being better than the other. It's about the dance between them. When these energies are out of balance, when one is over-dominant and the other repressed, we can feel incomplete, conflicted, or find ourselves unconsciously projecting these missing qualities onto the people in our lives, seeking our other half externally, because we haven't yet recognized and integrated them internally. This often leads to disappointment and frustration in relationships, as no external person can truly complete our inner work for us. The promise of Jung's alchemical marriage is that this inner division isn't a life sentence. It's an invitation to turn inwards, to courageously meet these disowned parts of ourselves, and to begin the sacred work of weaving them together. It's a path toward a profound inner union that can transform not just our relationship with ourselves, but also how we show up in the world, more whole, more balanced, and more authentically powerful. But what does this marriage truly entail? And how did Jung, drawing from the cryptic symbols of ancient alchemy, map out this journey of integration? That's where our exploration will lead us next, into the fascinating realm of the Anima and Animus. So, if many of us are indeed living with these somewhat lopsided inner landscapes, as exemplified by Elena and David, how did Jung conceptualize these other halves within us? He gave them specific names and saw them as powerful archetypal figures that reside in our unconscious, profoundly influencing our feelings, behaviors, and relationships. For a man, this inner feminine counterpart is the anima. For a woman, the inner masculine counterpart is the animus. Let's start with the anima, often described as a soul image within a man. She is a personification of all a man's latent feminine psychological qualities, his capacity for deep relatedness, his intuition, his emotional depth, his connection to nature, his creativity, and his receptivity to the irrational and the spiritual. The anima is shaped not only by a man's experiences with his mother and other significant women in his life, but also by the collective, archetypal image of woman that resides in the human psyche. Now, if a man like our friend David remains largely unconscious of his anima, if he's devalued or repressed these feminine qualities in himself, perhaps due to societal conditioning that equates masculinity with stoicism and pure logic, his anima doesn't just disappear. Instead, she can manifest in more problematic ways. He might experience uncontrollable moods, vague anxieties, or a kind of sentimental emotionality that feels out of character. He might find himself irrationally possessive in relationships, or endlessly project his idealized anima onto one woman after another, always seeking an external goddess to complete him, only to be inevitably disappointed when she turns out to be human. His creative well might run dry, and he might feel that emotional aridity we spoke of, a sense of being disconnected from his own soul. However, when a man begins to consciously engage with his anima, to acknowledge and integrate her qualities, she transforms into an invaluable inner guide. She can open him up to profound empathy, unlock his creative potential, connect him to his deepest feelings and values, and allow him to form more mature, authentic relationships. His anima, once an unconscious force, becomes a bridge to his own soul, bringing warmth, meaning, and a richer inner life. Similarly, for a woman, the animus is a personification of her unconscious masculine psychological qualities. He represents her capacity for focused thought, logic, assertiveness, courage, objective discernment, and her connection to meaning, spirit, and purposeful action. Like the anima, the animus is shaped by a woman's experiences with her father and other significant men, as well as by the collective, archetypal image of man. If a woman like Elena is unconscious of her animus, or if these masculine qualities have been suppressed, perhaps by cultural narratives that expect women to be solely nurturing and yielding, her animus can also cause trouble. He might manifest as rigid, dogmatic opinions that she fiercely defends without true understanding, or a tendency towards argumentative and destructively critical behavior. She might feel possessed by an inner voice that tells her what she ought to do, often based on unexamined collective assumptions. Or she might project her animus onto men, either seeking a hero to give her life direction or constantly battling with male figures who seem to embody the very assertiveness she hasn't claimed it herself. Her struggle with decisiveness and boundaries, as we saw with Elena, can be a sign of an unintegrated animus. But when a woman courageously turns to meet her animus, to understand and integrate his energies, he becomes a powerful inner ally. He can provide her with clarity of thought, the courage to stand by her convictions, the ability to translate her creative visions into tangible reality, and a strong sense of inner authority and purpose. Her animus, no longer a source of unconscious opinionation, becomes a bridge to her own inner wisdom and effective action in the world. It's important to see the anima and animus not just as simple internalizations of our parents, but as archetypal forces. They are deeply rooted in the collective unconscious, the shared psychic inheritance of humanity. They often appear in our dreams as figures who guide, challenge, or fascinate us. And Jung believed their development within us often occurs in stages, evolving from more primitive and problematic expressions to more mature and integrated forms. So why is acknowledging and integrating these soul's counterparts so crucial? Why is this part of the alchemical marriage? Because as long as the anima or animus remains unconscious and unintegrated, we are, in a sense, psychically incomplete. We project these powerful, unowned parts of ourselves onto others, leading to misunderstandings, unhealthy dependencies, and a repetition of painful relational patterns. We might feel like David, emotionally parched despite external success, or like Elena, empathetic but struggling to navigate the world with firm direction. We are not yet in full possession of our own inner resources. The process of integration involves withdrawing these projections, courageously facing the anima or animus as an inner reality, and consciously cultivating the qualities they represent within ourselves. It's about a man learning to honor his feelings and intuition, and a woman learning to own her intellect and assertive power. This isn't about becoming androgynous in a flat, undifferentiated way. It's about becoming more whole, more richly human, by embracing the full spectrum of our psychic potential. Does any of this resonate with you? Have you ever found yourself inexplicably drawn to certain types of people who seem to embody qualities you admire but feel you lack? Or perhaps you've noticed recurring themes or figures in your dreams that seem to represent a hidden part of yourself. These could be whispers from your anima or animus, inviting you to a deeper conversation. Recognizing these powerful inner figures, these soul's counterparts, is a vital first step on the path to the alchemical marriage. But it's one thing to identify them, and quite another to truly engage with them, to dialogue with them, and to begin the subtle, transformative process of their integration. How do we move from unconscious projection to conscious relationship with these inner archetypes? What does the alchemical work, the opus, of this inner marriage actually look and feel like? That is the sacred art we turn to next. So, we've identified these potent inner figures. The anima, a man's inner feminine soul, and the animus, a woman's inner masculine spirit. We understand that leaving them unconscious leads to imbalance and projection, like with our friends David and Elena. But how do we move beyond mere recognition to active, conscious integration? How do we actually do the work of this inner alchemical marriage? This is where Carl Jung invites us to become modern-day alchemists of the psyche. He saw the often bizarre symbols and cryptic processes of ancient alchemy not as failed chemistry, but as a profound symbolic language describing the journey of psychological transformation, the opus magnum or great work of becoming whole. The alchemists, Jung believed, were often unknowingly projecting their own unconscious psychic processes onto the substances in their crucibles. Their quest to transform lead into gold was, at its deepest level, a metaphor for the transformation of the ordinary leaden self into the radiant gold of the individuated, integrated self. Let's explore a few key alchemical stages and see how they mirror the process of integrating the anima or animus. The nigredo, the blackening or dissolution. This is the first and often most difficult stage. In alchemy, it involved breaking down the original matter, reducing it to its chaotic, primordial state, a black, undifferentiated mass. Psychologically, the nigredo represents the confrontation with our own shadow, and, crucially, with the shadow aspect of our anima or animus. It's where we must courageously withdraw our projections. David has to face the fact that his idealized goddess projection onto women is unrealistic and stems from his own unlived anima. Elena must confront how her unintegrated animus might manifest as a rigid, critical inner voice, or lead her to seek an external hero figure. This stage involves disillusionment. The old, unconscious ways of relating to these inner figures and others must dissolve. It can be a period of confusion, despair, or feeling lost, as comfortable illusions are stripped away. For David, it might mean facing his emotional numbness and the pain of his undeveloped feeling life. For Elena, it might mean acknowledging her fear of conflict or her passive tendencies. It's a necessary descent into darkness before any true light can emerge. The albedo, the whitening or purification. Out of the darkness of nigredo, the alchemists hope for the albedo, a whitening, a purification. Psychologically, this signifies a dawning of clarity and differentiation. We begin to see our anima or animus more clearly as distinct inner realities, no longer confusing them with external people or being blindly possessed by their unconscious manifestations. This is where conscious dialogue with these inner figures can begin. We start to understand their needs, their messages, their positive potential. David might start to recognize and value his own intuitive hunches or his capacity for empathy, his animus speaking. Elena might begin to hear and trust her own inner voice of reason and discernment, her animus emerging. The prima materia of the psyche is being cleansed of projections and unconscious contamination. The rubido, the reddening or consummation, often preceded or accompanied by a yellowing, citronitas, signifying new insight. The rubido is the culmination, the alchemical marriage itself. It represents a union of opposites, the integration of the conscious ego with the now differentiated and purified anima or animus. In alchemy, this was the creation of the philosopher's stone, symbolizing wholeness, incorruptibility, and healing. Psychologically, it signifies a profound state of inner balance and integration. The anima is no longer a moody, unconscious force, but a source of wisdom, creativity, and soulfulness for a man. The animus is no longer a collection of rigid opinions, but a source of clear insight, courage, and purposeful action for a woman. This is where true inner partnership is forged. So, how do we actively participate in these transformative stages? Jung offered several pathways. Dream work. Our dreams are a direct line to the unconscious. Figures representing the anima or animus often appear. Paying attention to these dream figures, journaling about them, and reflecting on their messages can be profoundly illuminating. Active imagination. This is Jung's unique method for consciously dialoguing with figures from the unconscious. It involves allowing these inner personalities, your anima or animus, to speak, to express themselves, and engaging in a genuine, often surprising conversation with them. It's like inviting them to the table for a discussion. Creative expression, art, writing, music, dance. Any form of creative expression can be a powerful way to give form to, explore, and integrate the energies of the anima and animus. Elena might find herself painting images of strong, decisive feminine figures, or David might start writing poetry that taps into his long-suppressed emotional world. Conscious relationship. Our external relationships often serve as mirrors for our inner state. By mindfully observing our attractions, our frustrations, and our projections in relationships, we can learn a great deal about our unintegrated anima or animus and begin to withdraw those projections, taking responsibility for our own inner life. Self-reflection. Simply paying honest attention to our moods, our deeply held and perhaps unexamined opinions, our emotional reactions, and our patterns of behavior can reveal the influence of these inner figures. It's vital to remember that this marriage isn't about the ego conquering or controlling the anima or animus. It's about building a respectful, dynamic, and evolving relationship with these vital parts of ourselves. They are, after all, aspects of our own soul. Like any profound relationship, it requires ongoing attention, communication, and a willingness to learn and grow. For Elena, her alchemical journey might involve her nigredo of facing her deep-seated fear of disapproval, leading to an albedo where she clearly sees her animus not as an external authority, but as her own inner capacity for clear thought and action. Her rubido could be her newfound ability to confidently express her needs and pursue her goals, while still retaining her deep empathy. For David, his journey might involve a nigredo confronting his emotional isolation, leading to an albedo where he recognizes his anima's gentle whispers of intuition and feeling. His rubido could be a life where his logical prowess is enriched by a newfound emotional intelligence and creative vitality. This alchemical journey, this inner marriage, is indeed profound, demanding courage, patience, and a deep commitment to self-honesty. But what are the tangible fruits of this sacred union? How does this hard-won integration actually manifest in our everyday lives, transforming not just our inner world, but also how we navigate our relationships and find our unique place in the world? That is the golden promise we will explore as we conclude our journey. The path of the alchemical marriage, as Carl Jung envisioned it, is indeed an opus magnum, a great work. It demands courage to face the shadows of the nigredo, patience for the purification of the albedo, and a deep commitment to fostering the sacred union of the rubedo. It's a journey from feeling like Elena, perhaps wonderfully empathetic but struggling with decisive action, or like David, logical and successful yet emotionally somewhat barren, towards a state of greater inner wholeness. So, what does life look like when these inner masculine and feminine energies begin to dance in true partnership? What is the golden harvest of this profound integration? Firstly, one of the most luminous fruits is a blossoming of genuine creativity. When the structured, discerning qualities of the masculine principle unite with the intuitive, imaginative flow of the feminine, a powerful creative synergy is born. Ideas can be not only conceived with visionary depth, but also brought into tangible form with clarity and purpose. Whether it's in art, innovation, problem-solving, or simply in the art of living a more imaginative life, this inner union unlocks new wellsprings of inspiration. Secondly, our relationships with others are profoundly transformed. As we withdraw our projections of the anima or animus in the people in our lives, we begin to see them more clearly for who they truly are, not as carriers of our unlived potential or our disowned shadows. Men with an integrated anima can relate to women with greater empathy, understanding, and genuine partnership, rather than idealization or fear. Women with an integrated animus can engage with men with more confidence, directness, and mutual respect, free from unconscious power struggles or dependency. Our connections become less about fulfilling a lack and more about a meeting of two whole individuals. Thirdly, we experience a deepening of emotional intelligence and inner balance. The man who has embraced his anima is no longer a stranger to his own heart. He can navigate his emotions with wisdom and sensitivity. The woman who has integrated her animus finds an inner source of strength and clarity that allows her to meet life's challenges with resilience and discernment. The old oscillations between, say, rigid logic and overwhelming emotionality, or between passive indecision and aggressive opinionation, begin to mellow into a more flexible, adaptive, and centered way of being. This leads to an enhanced sense of purpose and meaning. By connecting with these deeper, archetypal layers of our psyche, we often tap into a more authentic sense of what truly matters to us. The integrated anima can connect a man to his soul's calling, while the integrated animus can empower a woman to pursue her unique path with conviction. Life begins to feel less like a series underscore of accidental happenings, and more like a meaningful journey guided by an inner compass. Ultimately, the alchemical marriage is a cornerstone of what Jung called individuation, the lifelong process of becoming a unique, indivisible whole, the person we were truly meant to be. It's about reclaiming all the lost or disowned parts of ourselves and integrating them into a cohesive, functioning self. This doesn't mean achieving some static state of perfection. The marriage itself is a dynamic state, requiring ongoing attention, dialogue, and adjustment. Like any vital relationship, living with the fruits of this inner union means living with greater authenticity. We are less driven by unconscious compulsions or societal expectations and more guided by our own integrated core. There's a solidity, a quiet confidence that comes from this inner alignment. We become more capable of navigating the complexities of life with both strength and grace, both wisdom and compassion, bringing it to a final, memorable close. The path of the alchemical marriage is not a quick fix or an easy formula. It is a profound, often challenging, but ultimately immensely rewarding endeavor. It asks us to become conscious explorers of our own inner worlds, courageous enough to meet all aspects of ourselves, and patient enough to foster their sacred union. The gold of this alchemy isn't a mythical substance, but the living reality of a more integrated, vibrant, and authentically human life. It's the quiet joy of inner harmony, the power of true self-possession, and the wisdom that comes from having embraced the totality of who you are, your light and your shadow, your inner masculine and your inner feminine, all dancing together in the sacred space of your own transformed heart. This, perhaps, is the deepest magic Jung revealed, that the most profound transformations don't happen out there in the world, but within the crucible of our own being, through the courageous and loving union of our own divided selves. The alchemical marriage awaits within each of us, offering the promise of not just a changed life, but a transfigured soul.